Flyers hockey is back.
It has started. You know,
This
we're
month
right
of
back.
October is unbelievable. I love it.
Kind of preseason went quick, didn't it?
Yeah. The Flyers opened up last night to a full house, and we got to get. We haven't really talked that much Flyers over the last.
We haven't talked it at all.
We really about it at all.
No.
But we're going to talk about it today. So let's go to the Barb's Harley Davidson Sports Hotline and welcome into the locker room. He covers the Flyers for the Athletic, Charlie O'Connor. Good morning, Charlie.
Hey, Billy. How you doing?
Charlie, I'm doing well. Look, the Flyers opened last night. The first person I thought of was you. I saw a couple tweets that you put out. I know that you cover the Flyers. You're there all the time, and I always like to get your opinion on the Flyers season. They're off to they got a tie. It's opened up with a tie at home. But, Charlie, give us your impression of the Flyers going into the season. Not last night's game, but going into the season. What is your expectations?
Well, I can tell you the Flyers certainly expect to compete. They really think that they can have a big bounce back year from last season, which is obviously a severe disappointment, especially coming after a 2019-2020 season where they finished the season one of the hottest teams in the league, obviously won a playoff series and pushed the Islanders to 7 games. So they think they're a lot more like that team than the team that disappointed dramatically last season. In terms of my view, I certainly think they can. There's a lot of question marks surrounding the team. From goaltending to the restructured defense to the fact that they're going to be missing Kevin Hayes for probably about a month to start the year, which really cuts down on their center depth. So there's absolutely question marks. But I do believe that this is a talented team. I think, maybe they're not a Stanley Cup contender, but they certainly have the talent to make the playoffs. It just kind of comes down to whether, guys who are looking for bounce back seasons can actually bounce back and whether the new group as a whole can gel quick enough to compete in what really is going to be a really, really difficult, tight division.
Well, Charlie, it's Scotty McKay. For me this year, the offseason with Chuck Fletcher, picking up a lot of defense, which I think was really focused on making sure Carter Hart had the right guys in front of him. How are your feelings going into the season, basically was the defense good enough to do that and to really help Carter Hart? Because last night I kind of saw flashbacks of last year a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was interesting last night. You had the first period I thought was very reminiscent of the 2019-2020 Flyers, the good Flyers, the ones that, swarm on the forecheck, constantly attacking. They attack in waves in the offensive zone because they have scoring depth. That was the good Flyers. Then I thought the second period was the 2020-2021 Flyers, the bad Flyers, where you've got, goals that probably shouldn't be happening. You've got, loose defense in the net front. You've got a bunch of bad penalties being taken, stupid, unnecessary penalties being taken that put the team in a hole. You've got a penalty kill that's giving up goals. So it was interesting where you had, the good version of the Flyers, they're still in there, but they're still not fully past the bad version, the team that disappointed so much last season. So in a way, game one, while obviously they came out with a point, they lost in the shootout, but they still got the loser point there for the standings. That's helpful. But it was one of those things where, if you want to come away feeling positive, you can. If you want to come away feeling negative, you can, because there was enough examples of both, where however you're feeling, you could leave that stadium or turn off the television and be feeling the way you want to feel.
And we're talking with Charlie O'Connor from The Athletic. You can follow him at CharlieO_Con. Hey, Charlie, you did have a couple tweets last night about the play of Carter Hart. But first, it seemed like last year all over again in game one where They got behind. They came back. Carter Hart let a couple weak goals in. But one of your tweets was you made an observation that the team, everybody in the building, the team and his teammates and his coaches had his back. But it just felt, you know what I mean, Scooter? It felt like the same team as last year, getting behind early, catching up, and then losing in a shootout.
Yeah, I actually asked Ivan Provorou that after the game, that last year, one of the big problems was them falling behind, them chasing games, and they had to do it again. And he acknowledged that was, a big problem last year, arguably the biggest problem. But he basically said that I don't think that this game is going to, set the tone for what's going to happen all season long. So credit the players and Alain Vigneault, because they came out of that game, confident, and they weren't negative about it. They had, I think, the right attitude for game one, where they liked parts of what they did. They need to clean up some other things. They weren't throwing Carter Hart under the bus. They basically pointed to the penalties in the second period as the biggest reason why the game turned, which I think is a fair assessment. So I agree with you to a point, but I do think that, game one, obviously a lot of narratives come out of it because it's the first game. Right. It's the only game. It's the only game you've got. But I will say that, let's give them a few weeks. Let's see if this again is a problem, because it was a huge problem last year. They would go to sleep for periods at a time, and then they would storm back. But by then, you're 2-3 goals down, and it did feel very 2021 Flyers last night in that regard. But I will say that, talking to the players and the coach after the game, those responses they gave were very different than the kind of responses I was getting last year.
But Charlie and Scooter, it was frustrating to me with seeing that puck, like Carter Hart's skate wasn't against the post, and it sneaks in that way. That stuff is enough to piss you off. I mean, something he should.
Him losing track of the puck is difficult at times.
Right. I mean, those little plays like that. Now, Charlie, I was impressed with a couple players last night. A couple new guys. Ryan Ellis impressed me, Scooter. Yeah. I thought Yandel did a great job, and Farabee played well. Konechny played a good game. I was impressed with the jump in their skate and the enthusiastic play I saw. I just saw a different team offensively than we've seen in previous years.
Yeah, I thought Ryan Ellis was fantastic last night. One thing that really stood out to me in the first period especially was the ease in which the Flyers were breaking out of their own zone, because that was a major problem last year. They were getting pinned in their own zone because the forwards were leaving the zone too early, making it harder for defensemen to pass the puck to them, but also the defensemen weren't doing a good enough job of going back, retrieving pucks, winning puck battles, and passing the puck accurately. And I thought Ryan Ellis was probably the best Flyer at that last night in terms of getting the Flyers back up ice and getting them back on the attack. So I really liked Ryan Ellis's game. And to be honest, I've been a Ryan Ellis fan for years, dating back to his time in Nashville. So it didn't shock me that he played well. But I do think he's going to be a major, major help to this defense, and he's going to be a major help to Ivan Provorou as well, because that pairing looked good. And obviously Provorou had something of a down year last year, considering he lost Matt Niskanen as a partner. They tried him with a few different guys, and no one really clicked to the degree that Matt Niskanen did. I think Ryan Ellis is going to be a big help to him. So that's one area, that first pair that I really think is going to be solidified because of, the addition that the Chuck Fletcher made. And as for the other guys, I thought Farabee played well. I thought Konechny, was quiet in the middle of the game. Obviously, he had that big goal in the third to cut the deficit to 4-3. And Yandel had his moments. I thought he, on the first goal that the Flyers allowed, I thought he got pulled over a little bit too far in rush coverage, which allowed for Podkolzin to have too much time and space to pick his spot on the rush. But on the whole, I didn't think he was bad. And the thing with Yandel is you kind of have to take the good with the bad with him. He's more of an offensive defenseman, so he's not going to be perfect in his own zone. But yeah, I think for the most part, the skaters looked pretty okay. And it just kind of comes down to, the Flyers said it was, bad bounces with regards to some of the goals, and taking dumb penalties. Hart certainly could have played better, but as I said, they had his back. So they more pinned, chalked it up to bad luck and bad bounces, and they think they're going to be better in the future.
Well, Charlie, the disappointing thing for me was that, obviously they come out and I thought they played great in the first period. And watching the game, being a hockey coach myself, I thought they came out with a lot of passion. They had the fans back, which is great for them. But then the second period, they disappear. And then it seems like this team waits till last night for me, it was the 13-minute mark. They started playing like they should be playing for 60 minutes. Right. And they've always been like a late team, but they're not good enough to wait till, 10 minutes left in the game to start playing hard. And luckily, hey, listen, it worked last night. I mean, they got a power play with little over 2.5 minutes left to go of the game. They score a goal there, which gets them in one. But I just, and listen, being a coach, I never want to really blame the coach per se, but it doesn't seem like he's got them ready to go for 60 minutes. And that's going to be, especially with a 4-game homestand to start the season, it's imperative they get off to a good start.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you to a point. I do think that the modern NHL, it is, the game goes in terms of waves. One team has the momentum for 5 minutes and another team has the momentum for 10 minutes. And that's the case for pretty much every team in hockey. So I do think that the idea of playing a 60-minute game in terms of controlling play for 60 minutes, it's a bit antiquated because it just doesn't happen. Like the Tampa Bay Lightning don't even do that. The real thing is, what you have to do is when you're not playing all that well, you have to limit the damage. And that's
right.
What didn't happen last night. They didn't have a great second period, but had they given up 2 goals instead of 4, it wouldn't have been as bad.
Game.
It's just that, you're not going to control a game from start to finish, but you have to, play good enough defense in your own zone. You have to have that effort level. You can't have a goalie giving up weak goals so that, when you do start getting back on your game, you're either still ahead or you're not down by so much that, that you have to, race back and try to, erase a 2-3 goal deficit. That's something that happened too much last year, and obviously it happened again last night.
And they only give up 5 goals or 5 shots in the first period, and they give up 34 in the next 2 periods. Right. It just seems like they're not just even trying to control the damage; they're going away. They're completely going away. So
yeah, well, I mean, I definitely think that the second period took the wind out of their sails for a bit, and it makes sense. I mean, the players may have defended Carter Hart, but after all last season, you're watching goal after goal after goal going in. And it's going to creep in your mind a little bit, like, oh boy, here we go again.
Right.
We're getting a goal bouncing off the backboards and going into the net, and a goal that came from a sharp angle that Hart lost track of, and then they poke in, and you probably start to lose a little confidence. But to their credit, I mean, they did make that last push. It was definitely benefited from that Oliver Ekman-Larsson penalty that gave them the 6-on-4 opportunity, but they did make that last push. They did tie the game. They can come away from this game with some confidence, with some positives, and we'll see how the rest of the homestand goes.
And I mean, you look at the Vancouver, that first line of Miller, Pete Pedersen, and Podkozlin. Those guys, they're crafty and they got some speed. So I mean, it's like a boxing match, like a punching match. They're exchanging blows, and they survived it. So I mean.
I was impressed that Drew got 8 shots on goal last night.
He got 8 shots on goal. And like you said, Yandel might be a little bit of a liability defensively, but he had 2 assists for 2 points, and he had 2 shots on goal. I mean, so, you know what I mean? He's getting
He'll be a good
I think they can give this team some time to gel, Charlie.
Yeah. Third pairing.
Yeah, and he's a great locker room guy too. I mean, he's one of the true good guys in the game. So he'll be definitely good for the culture in that locker room, which I think definitely needed an infusion of new blood. So I'm not criticizing Yandel too much. I'm just saying that you take it the good with the bad with him. You know that he's going to help on the power play. He's going to provide good passing on the breakout and whatnot. But at times he's going to hurt you defensively, and I thought he did on that first goal. But I agree. On the whole, I think he did a lot of good things, and I think it'll help the team.
Do you know the time line for Ristolainen?
Yeah, what's the deal with him?
Upper body.
It seems like he's day to day. I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in the lineup on Monday, or not back in the lineup because he's yet to make his Flyers debut. Right. But he skated in the pregame skate yesterday. Obviously, he didn't play. But I don't get the sense he's far away. I kind of think it's one of those things where, if it was a playoff game last night, he probably would have played. But there's really no reason to push someone in game one when you've got 81 more games afterwards, and there's a chance you could re-aggravate something and then turn a day-to-day injury into a 4-week injury. So I think more than anything, they were probably playing it safe with him. But no, I don't think he's far away. I think he'll be back soon.
We're talking with Charlie O'Connor. He covers the Flyers for The Athletic. And Charlie, how about that Dave Hackstall coming to town with the Seattle Kraken on Monday?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Dave back behind the bench as a head coach in Philadelphia. Obviously, he wasn't the most popular coach in Philadelphia by the end of his tenure. I'll say that, but But no, it's interesting. It's gonna be really interesting to see how he does this year. With Seattle, with an expansion team, obviously. Fairly or unfairly, expectations are high for the Kraken just because of what Vegas did their first year.
Yeah.
So, not saying that the Seattle is going to do what Vegas did, but when the last expansion team gets to the Cup final, you kind of have a feeling of, it's not just a throwaway year like it normally is for expansion teams that first year. There's actually some expectations, and I don't think they're a bad team, so it'll be an interesting game. And obviously, Hackstall's return adds a little bit more fuel to the fire for that game for the Flyers.
I wonder what type of reception he's going to get.
Not good.
I don't know. We'll see. I don't. As I said, I don't think that at least the online portion of the fan base was big Dave Hackstall fans, but he might get a polite cheers, maybe. We'll see.
Now, Charlie, you did also tweet out last night, and I thought this was pretty cool because you are there, although you're way up in the nosebleeds. But you said it was great to have the full crowd back and the enthusiasm and the passion of a Flyers game. That it makes it worthwhile covering it easier. It makes your job a little easier too.
It does. It's a lot more fun. I mean, one thing, and I'm absolutely blessed to have the job I have, but it's so much more fun to cover a hockey game when the crowd is into the game. First off, when the crowd is actually at the game, but it's so much more fun to cover a hockey game when the crowd is in the game because it just adds so much of the atmosphere, the excitement level. The players feed off of it. Everyone feeds off of it, and I hadn't heard the arena as loud as it was after Giroux scored the game-tying goal in over a year. It dates back to, I guess, February or March of 2020. So that was cool. That was it was really cool.
And that was a shot. Listen,
that.
You saw when he was behind the net. You saw him. He kind of lifted his stick and pointed to Couturier. Like that, obviously, is a play that they've worked several times in practice.
That's a great play to back off the backboard.
Couturier put it right where it had to be.
Well, Giroux did say he was going to pass the puck there. And the way the puck came to him, it flattened out for him. He just ended up pushing it towards the hits off.
He lifted his stick, Giroux behind the net, on side of the net.
Yeah, it was
pointed to Couturier to shoot it back there. I saw that. I mean,
the players that I coach, they don't make that play. They're taking a shot at net. It banks off the back of the boards. That's the problem.
All right. Well, listen, Charlie, you're one of the good guys. We really appreciate you taking time out to join us here in the locker room on Saturday morning. Let's go Flyers, and let's go Don Earl.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Charlie.
Remember that? Let's go Gene Hart. Let's go Flyers, and let's go Don Earl. There he is, Charlie O'Connor from The Athletic, who covers the Flyers on the Barb's Harley Davidson Sports Hotline.